Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and today, sometimes I gotta do some videos for myself, and that's what we're doing today. I had mentioned it before that I've wanted to do a video where I took you behind the scenes and showed you some of the tools of my trade, and I thought today would be a great way to do that. Now, I want to apologize for last week, but also let me just tell you, now that we've entered November, it's the holiday season, my schedule's going to be a little iffy just because craziness and meeting people, having lunches and stuff. If you follow me on Instagram, you might even see some photos of where I'm going, what I'm doing, stuff like that. It also doesn't help that releases have slowed down a little bit in terms of Transformers and stuff like that. I mean, I do have Dino King to look at, that Insecticon 2-pack from Amazon. So just we'll get to it, but if things become a little erratic, hey, if you miss me, that's what the backlog is for. But anyway, today I wanted to show you, like, really the evolution of what I film with. And I think we'll start off with what I'm using right now. And what I'm using right now is a Google Pixel 6. Now, I have to say, this is the best camera I've ever used in terms of photos and video. It shoots in 4K. Now, without getting too much into the phone, there is that issue where the phone does overheat. But I've actually found a setting where I can film in 4K and all year round without having to adjust, because obviously in the summer things are hotter, it'll get warmer. But in terms of the quality, just setting it up, I mean, I don't tinker with settings. I'm not really a photographer or videographer or anything professionally like that. But really with the photos, I mean, if you've noticed, since I've gotten the phone, I've taken a lot more photos. I can get action shots, motion, montage. I mean, just some really fun stuff that I can do. And just recently, I even started experimenting with slow-mo, like fast forward speeds when I'm building blocky kits and stuff like that. Now, what I'm using to hold the phone is actually what I'm using right now, and that's because recently I got into the whole MagSafe thing, and I think I finally, a lot of, besides cell phone mounting equipment, I have a thing for cases and grips and stuff, and I'm a big fan of the company Love Handle. So when I found out that they finally came out with a mount that's removable, transferable, but it uses the MagSafe technology, I had to go all in. And then I noticed that there's mounts and stuff like that. So what I'm using is something that looks a bit like this. And this has a claw on it, spring loaded, that can grip onto different things. When I would be standing over by my basement door, that's what I was using. Now the one I'm using is a little bit weaker than this one. Has like a thumb notch on it that I can help pry it open. This one, the silver one, is all metal, holds a lot better. But the one I'm using now is just a little bit easier to open and close, and I feel a little less concerned that I'm going to damage the surface, even though there's like rubber padding on both. So that's what I'm using now. I also have this. This is a Bluetooth clicker. It's basically a shutter button that will start the camera, stop the camera, take photos. Now this one, when I initially got it, also worked with the YouTube app to start and stop the camera to film shorts. Unfortunately, the YouTube app updated, and this doesn't work for that anymore, which is really why specifically I got this one. And I have not been able to find one that works the same way. But to be honest with you, I now mostly film, if I'm filming a short, I'll just film it using my native camera app, and then just upload it there, and stuff like that, unless I'm doing something fancy with a backdrop or what have you. Now, going back to ye olden days, the start, which is really maybe like the second year after I started the channel, I was using something like this. This is a Logitech webcam, adjustable, can straighten it out like this, and it's mountable to a tripod, which I've had a few different ones, but really the main one I was using for a while was made by this company called Aukey. Now the problems with this was this would go directly into my laptop, and funny enough, to keeping that spirit alive, I keep my raw footage in the old Logitech folder just because it's easy to access. So they take up a lot of space on my table. The other thing is that Logitech products are great until they're not. And you don't know when that not's coming until it happens. Like, this would break down, fall apart. See if they, which one? Okay. Like, this is actually like a 1.5 version of this. And the reason being is I'm going to show you the plug here. See how it has that tempered edge? Well, the original one just went from the cable into the plug, and it would bend, it would kink, the wiring inside would become damaged. They then added, and they realized that this was a problem, so then they then added that tapering. Well, it would also stop working for a while. So there was that. So eventually I learned to start using cell phones. That's really around the time I started using Android. Now, going back to this, let me just quickly say, Aukey was a great company. They made good products that were cheap. The problem is that they got caught up in a scandal where they were fishing for reviews and, paying people for reviews, using fake reviews. And Amazon pulled them, and I don't think the company is in business anymore. The other thing is, I used this tripod for a really long time. I mean, this was like my tripod. Has like a little level built in. You could adjust the camera very nicely. It screws in. You can screw a mount in. Unfortunately, as you can see, once the legs loosened up, there was really nothing more I could do. There are screw holes. I did try to tighten them. It didn't work. So then I switched over to, this is an Amazon Basics, now I guess Amazon Essentials tripod. And it basically works the same way. There are actually two different settings in terms of how low you want the legs to open, which is kind of nice. And instead of a switch, you have the turning knob. And yeah, you actually can take this whole section off and just use that as the platform for your mount, which more often than not I would do, because this whole section here would end up making the camera sit way higher than I would want. Now, speaking of mounts, I don't have the original mount I used handy, but it looked like something like this. And this came with one of the other tripods we're going to get to a little bit later. And basically, you would screw this on, sandwich it open, put your phone in, and close it. I eventually would update now to something like this. This is made by a company by Joby. And I would actually even use the Joby tripod. Now, the problem with the Joby tripod is, because the legs are on these ball joints, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware about. This is great if you're outdoors and you need to like wrap it around something, because you can just do that and like it'll hold securely. Those loosen up over time, and there's really no way to like tighten them up. The other thing is that because every single joint here moves, it's very easy to have it just off enough that it drives you nuts, and then you have to waste the time to adjust it. Now this is a great mount, because this is really a 2-in-1, where you open it up, you can put your phone in, slide it down, has a mount for an extra light, but you could also rotate it into the vertical selfie position. So there was that, and I would use that for like photos and stuff. I had a few different kinds of mounts. Let me just tell you. There was another one I think Joby made that was like a small, thin one that could go on a keychain. I used that for a really long time. I actually used that a lot, predominantly with the Aukey. I don't not really sure where it is now. I should have tried to grab it because that they still make. This they still make. Joby still makes their stands. So, there's stuff like that. Well, eventually, size became an issue for filming in terms of the figures and stuff like that. I just using those tabletop tripods couldn't get the angles I wanted. Now around that time, I would say around the time maybe when this came out, selfie sticks started getting barred in a lot of places. So companies found the alternative, and it's something like this. Now, this you guys will probably recognize. I might have shown it to you before, but definitely we've used it. This is a powered selfie stick. The remote is actually built in right here. And what's cool about it is it has a stabilizing gimbal that will hold the phone in place when it's on. You can also lock it into place with that dial, but it will also rotate, which I'm sure you've seen. Most recently, I used this when I was filming my little silly short wearing the Optimus Prime mask. But what's great is that it is a selfie stick, but to avoid getting into trouble, the handle opens up and it's a tripod. Now, I've never been able to use this to film reviews because it would either sit too high on the table or it's not long enough to go from the floor. But I love this thing. I use it a lot when I'm just filming or shooting photos myself. The remote, the Bluetooth remote is the best one I've used and I've had. Like this one right here, which I'm using right now, I guarantee you this goes into, like, a lot of these go into a sleep mode. I bet you anything this is in a sleep mode right now, and so when I'm done filming here, it's not going to turn off. The other thing I should mention, is that there's this little rubber base, and that helps hold the phone and secure it without pressing buttons or stuff like that. We'll get into that a little bit more. So, as I was saying, my needs changed. I needed something that was a little bit more robust. So, a friend of mine showed me this on Amazon. This I used for a long time in terms of filming reviews, getting the angles. I still use it now when I have like leader, commander, larger size figures. I use this, but I was even using this for like deluxe and stuff. It is a selfie stick. It is meant to be one. Comes with its own remote built in. But the big thing is, this is really long enough that it will go from floor to, the top of my table, that I could actually film it. And what I really like is that you see this little ring right here. This actually will lock the tripod open. Like I said, I've used this to film reviews. I've used this to, do the little vlogs you see during the holidays and stuff like that. This is what I was using, and I'll probably be using this year too when we start doing our Advent vlogs again, just to get the right positioning and stuff like that. But it is very nice, and yeah, again, as I said at the beginning, I'm sure some of you caught, I do have a little bit of a thing for tripods and stuff. But what was nice is you can fit different mounts on the tip here. Like I said, I have this one right now for the MagSafe. Really handy. Now, sometimes I impulse buy. And impulse buying, I end up with stuff like this. Now, I saw on Instagram they were advertising a selfie stick tripod that actually did the rotating like this one, but it was an all-in-one unit where the mount was built in, like here. And again, you have a remote built in And basically, the way this works is you pull it up slightly. There's a button here at the bottom that will release the legs. And here you have the mount, which is rotatable, that you can position it for different, in different ways. It's nice. It's good for when I've used it a couple times when I'm filming larger figures, because it does do floor to ceiling. But it's not tall enough to do like vlogs and stuff. And it doesn't rotate the way I would want it to, but if I ever see that one, maybe I'll get it, but I think I have enough now. Now that brings us now, you've been hearing me talk about these vice clamp mounts. And while I've been using those for a long time, there is the problem that depending on how tight they are, if they're too loose, the phone rattles in the mount. But if they're too tight, they'll actually depress buttons. Do you know how many times I've had a phone go into the assisted listening or the mode for people with like diminished vision, and I didn't know how to turn it off? Oh God. And that's because you hit two buttons at the same time. Now the way to fix that, and I'm going to use my little gripper here, is to put it in the mount that it's not anywhere near the buttons. There's the mounts are all, well, this one doesn't. It doesn't have that grooving to go around the buttons. But when you put it in offside, that really makes the camera off center. Now, shortly before I got this, I switched to a different case that had like a metal bar, and they talked about you can use it with magnetic mounts. So then I went ahead and picked this up. And this was a mount that I was using for a very long time with this tripod. And basically what it would do is I could just grab this, like let's say this is my phone, and it would stick on just like that, tightly, solid in place. If you wanted to rotate it, you could loosen it up, rotate it around into place, depending. And this was great. This I really liked. It really made things a lot easier in terms of setting up, that I could just slap the phone on and go. And that was this for the longest time. This was really the only magnetic mount I had, and I actually stopped using the grip ones depending on what case I was using that day. But then again, impulse purchase, but this time it worked out. Figures got smaller again. I really was getting tired of having the tripod between my legs because I would sometimes jostle it, and I wanted to look for something that could work as well as this, but be a little lower profile, sit on the table. And that's when I discovered this on Amazon, made by a company called Ulanzi. It is a pocket tripod. You can use it as a selfie stick. It is advertised to be a selfie stick. But as you'll see here, it has the openings at number one to put attachments on, but also to go around the buttons. It is like a spring-loaded, rotates. The base here opens up, so you have this, but you can also do something like this and have it sitting flat, or push here on the back. This can rotate around, and it makes it that much taller, and then you can start working with the positions and what have you and stuff like that. Really just a versatile tripod. This is the one I use most of the time now. It sits on the table just fine, folds up. It has like a little bit of like a fidget play to it. Like I was, even before I started filming with it, I was like, fidgeting with it, like, oh, this is fun, just opening it up. And I mean, it is very nice to use. Opening, and again, you can use it as a selfie. Unfortunately, there's no shutter button or anything like that to use to that you can stick on to accentuate activate the camera. Accentuate. But anyway, it is very nice, and they do have one coming out that a little bit bigger, but that's because it's going to have the MagSafe attachment, but it's also like a lantern, so you could strap it onto yourself, hook it on, and carry it. I'm going to be definitely picking that one up. Very interesting. So those are what I use to film. But what am I filming into? Now, you longtime viewers kind of know that I would use cardboard, different types of backdrops. I know guys, they use like poster board, sheets, and they get incredible stuff. That never really worked for me. So what I went and got was the Foldio light box system. This is the Foldio 3. Big boy. This is the one I am using 99% of the time. In fact, I have the Foldio 1 and the Foldio 2 because I thought they would be of the right size, that for smaller figures I could use them. Unfortunately, especially with the Foldio 1, it didn't work out that way. Now, I was using light boxes before that, but they were off-market stuff that really ultimately just didn't work out for me the way I wanted them to. But this was the one that I am the happiest with. It's not without its faults. The adhesive on the lights is coming off. When I wanted to get different backdrops, they sold them, but they didn't sell them with the attachments, so I had to buy an extra set of Velcro that is actually so strong, it's ripped out the felt on the backdrop that I had to put back in, and stuff like that. But ultimately, it works. Now I've even pointed it out to you guys in some videos. When you see you'll notice the Foldio 2 because it's a different colored backdrop, and you just get like a different vibe. And see, it's a little closer in. The original goal was core class and smaller deluxes, and maybe smaller little things here. I could use the Foldio 1. Deluxe class figures and some of the smaller 6-inch figures, I could use the Foldio 2. Everything bigger, I would use the Foldio 3. Well, unfortunately, even the smaller deluxe figures were too big for the Foldio 2, and the core class figures, while they would work in the Foldio 2, not the Foldio 1, it was so cramped, I didn't have enough hand space to maneuver and try to show things clearly. So everything gets shot in the Foldio 3. My setup now is the Foldio 3, the camera, and then using this tripod. And that's what you guys get. Now, in terms of editing, I'm sure as many of you know, for time in memoriam, I was using Microsoft Movie Maker, Windows Movie Maker. Great program, really great to cut your teeth on. Unfortunately, they discontinued it. So I had to find something else, and thankfully my dad had an old copy of Adobe Premiere or whatever. I think it's like a couple of years old now. So that's what I'm using now, the Movie Maker. I don't even use, I have Photoshop installed, and I've tried to use it, but it's just not intuitive. And what kills me, and let me know if this happens to you. You try to look for information, but the problem is you don't know what the right question to ask. It's like you have your question, but you don't know how to ask it, and that's my problem because I haven't been able to find the information. Like putting a word box, a word bubble on a photo or something to try something funny. So I just stick with, when you see the thumbnails now, I'm actually doing that in Movie Maker, Premiere Movies, whatever it's called. Works great. Get the text in, the coloring, the shadows, have some fun with it. I'm keeping it like all of this goes by the motto of keep it simple, stupid. Because even doing that, 9 times out of 10, it's a little bit longer to set up and film than what you actually end up seeing. And so I try to save as much time as possible. And this is what all of this has, that is what it's the goal has been. So yeah, I mean, in terms of changes coming soon, like I said, when I get that MagSafe stand, I'm definitely going to try busting that out. But I see myself set for like the time being. Prices, unfortunately, have really gone up that you can't really speculate that much. I mean, of course, and I'm not even talking about the prices on like the figures and stuff that I review. That's a whole other thing. I mean, I see guys every day tapping out because they just can't afford shipping. The cost of the items are just going too high, and then retailers with their algorithms are fooling around with price. But yeah. So now when you see the video, you have a little bit of idea of what I'm using. And if you got any questions, as I see this is like a 26 minute video that maybe 5 of you are going to watch. But hey, if you got any questions, feel free to ask. I know I sometimes let the comments go a little too long without checking them and approving them. I apologize. But yeah, go ahead and ask. I'll be more than happy to share whatever knowledge I have. Yeah, we'll see. Now watch. I've said all this. I've talked about my equipment. Everything's going to catastrophically crash, and I'm going to have to overhaul everything. God, I hope not. But that's about it. It's your old pal Chuck, and I'll see you in a review sooner than later.